Welcome to the 865 Bonneville video. If you're thinking about buying one of these bikes, maybe I can give you a little bit of advice. I've owned this one for something like 8 or 9 years now. This is a 2008 model, and I'll go over some of the details about these bikes and give you some ideas of what you can expect. These things are all over the place in the used market now for anywhere from $4,000 and up. And a new Bonneville is going to set you back probably 3 times that. So if you're a little budget conscious, this is something you may want to consider. Alright, so this bike in its original form, I mean the Hinckley original form, not the Meriden version. See my Meriden versus Hinckley video for more about that. These came out in 2001, I believe. The original design. They were originally 790 cc's. They bumped it to 865 in 2005, and they went all the way up to 2014, when in 2015 they brought out the new water-cooled model, which is very similar in appearance but very different experience to ride. This parallel twin's got about 66 horsepower, puts out about 52 pound-feet of torque, or 71 newton meters if you're metric. The bikes weigh 451 pounds without fluids, and just sneak under the 500 pound mark with all the fluids added. So they're a little portly. They're not lithe and spunky like the originals were. You don't really feel it too bad once you're moving underway, but it is not probably the lightest motorcycle out there in this size. And if you're a beginner, you might find it a little hefty. You're going to want to try sitting on one and pulling it off the stand first before you commit. This model is a 2008 and it's the last year for carburetors. 2009 they went to fuel injection. I rode both versions when I bought this one, and I honestly couldn't really tell the difference. Performance wise, they are pretty much identical. So what do we like and don't like about these bikes? Well, aside from the slightly heavy frame and engine, there's a couple of things that might irritate you once you get your hands on one of these or go for a ride. The first is probably these mirrors. Actually, the mirror stalks. They're too short. Normally, a bike, you should be able to see past your body when you look into those mirrors. These will give you a beautiful view of your shoulders and nothing behind you. So I bought these mirror extension pieces. Norman Hyde makes these. They just space the mirror out a little bit farther and then you can see what's behind you. One of the other things is the dash lights. These indicators are very dim in direct sunlight, but you can buy an LED upgrade that makes those nice and bright. I bought those, and it's pretty phenomenal now. See, you can actually see them. When your turn signals blink, you can see it. When your high beams are on, you can see it. Normally these would be a faint little glow, so they're not great. The other thing that you don't get in most of these is a tack. You did get a tack on some models, or you could buy it as a factory option. Very expensive, the kit to put the tack on that matches the Speedo. I got one of these Sportster Harley wannabe tachometers that you can add on, and I had to modify the bracket to make it work. This is a duplicate of the bracket that it came with, but it's much, I think it's about an inch longer. Doesn't quite fit the one that comes with it. These are really cheap. You can pick these things up for like 30 bucks. And they're not hard to wire. It's made for a twin cylinder bike. And it fits that little cutout pretty nicely. Another annoyance is the complete and utter lack of storage. On the original Bonnevilles, the seat would flip up and you had a little bit of storage underneath. On these, you've got these bolt heads down here that hold the seat on. So you need a tool to get those off. And even when you do, once you're in there, there's hardly any space to put anything other than maybe the owner's manual and your insurance card. These side covers, this one covers the air filter. And you need a coin or a screwdriver to get that off. No storage in there either. The air cleaner is not too hard to take out. One word of caution, I always put a piece of tape along here so I don't scratch the frame, because that filter will want to rub up against that as you take it out. The side cover on the other side covers a bunch of electronics. Probably never need to go in there. So storage, got none. If you can't fit it in your pocket, you're going to need a backpack or a tank bag or something like that. Now on my bike, you'll notice I replaced the tail light. That's a pretty common modification on these 865 Bonnevilles, because the stock tail light looks terrible. This is a Lucas style replacement with an aluminum housing and license plate holder. And you do need to get a spacer if you want it to fit the contour of the fender correctly. I can't remember actually who makes those, but that's a solid aluminum piece. It's pretty nice. Mine does also have different mufflers on it. I think they're Norman Hyde's. It has the air injection removed. Got little grab handles back here to help get it up on the center stand. And I did buy a center stand because mine did not come with it. Most of them don't. And also had to move the rear turn signals to do the tail light. And I got some Motone brackets that move that up and under the seat. There's a lot of different options on what you can do with the lights here on these. One other annoyance is when you want to take the rear wheel off or change the tire, you have to pull this bolt out of the axle bolt, and you can't do that until you take the muffler off. So that's not very convenient. That's mostly it for annoyances. My biggest complaint about this bike was the rear shocks. The factory rear shocks are horrible. The back of this bike will bounce all over the place going over bumps, and just horrible ride on it. I got some replacement Tech shocks, TEC, and these are a Chinese replacement. They're okay. For the money, they're fine. They're better than what Triumph put on, but if I was going to do it again, I probably wouldn't buy these. I would buy some Icons. I think they're probably the next most affordable and quality shock that you can get for these. I did not change the front fork springs. The front seems okay. The brakes on it are perfectly fine. I have no complaints there. The handling's decent for what it is. I mean, it is a vintage style bike, so it's going to have some corner carving limitations on it, but it actually does handle pretty well. It has a good lean angle. You don't really scrape pegs until you're really pushing it. Throttle response and performance I find acceptable for the kind of bike that it is. And of course, it's got fabulous good looks. So what about reliability? Well, I've put roughly 7,000 miles on this, I think, since I got it. The only thing I've had to replace is the tires. Of course, they wore out. The original Metzlers were okay. I replaced those with Avon Road Riders. They are highly recommended and do a nice job. I had to replace the cam cover gasket because it got rock hard and started to weep. That was after about 10 years of being on there, so that's not bad. Never had to touch the carbs. Haven't replaced brake pads. The only other thing I've done is change the oil and put gas in it. These are very reliable, very bulletproof bikes. Probably over-engineered at the time because Triumph Hinckley didn't want to have a bad reputation like Triumph Meriden did. And so these really are trouble-free machines. Now you might hear some people out there mentioning that they've had transmission problems, and that is, as far as I know, only on the newer water-cooled models. I never have really heard anybody having problems with one of these. I mean, no machine's perfect, and some people are going to have the occasional failure of some odd item. But I haven't put a chain, sprockets, anything on this yet. It's wearing like iron. I think it's on its third battery. Because batteries aren't as good as they used to be. But other than that, I haven't had to do much to it. The tank range is about 125 miles, so it's not spectacular. But by that time, you're probably ready for a break anyway. The riding position, for me, being 5'11", like a 36 or 34 inseam, I can't remember. It's a little cramped after a while, maybe. Your legs kind of are a little tight in the triangle. The handlebars, well, they could come back a little further to suit me, honestly. But it's not a bad machine at all. I mean, for what you would spend on one of these on the used market now, you really can't go wrong. The most comparable bike is going to be Kawasaki's W650. But they haven't made those for quite a while. I know the W800's out now. And I think that's only available in a cafe style, so it's not really as comfortable as this. Royal Enfield's Interceptor, that's a good one to cross shop with. Probably doesn't have quite the performance, but it's going to be lighter and a little bit more nimble. And Moto Guzzi's got that V7, I believe. If you can find a dealer. They can be a nice bike too. A little more leisurely, I think, in the performance realm, if I recall. Haven't ridden one in a long time. But if you want to go fast, you're probably looking at like a Kawasaki Z900 RS with a 4-cylinder engine. But there's something about these twins. They just make a certain nice low-level vibration. Lets you know you're riding something. It's just a fun bike. So really, if you're thinking about one, don't be afraid. Not much to go wrong with them. Valve adjustments are every 12,000 miles. They are shim, so you got to take things apart and measure them to do that. Like most motorcycles. Royal Enfield makes it a little easier. But I have really no complaints. This bike has served me well, and at this stage of the game, I really don't have any intentions of replacing it with anything else. If you have any questions on the Bonneville 865 series or the earlier 790s, don't be afraid to drop them in the comments below. I'll try to answer them for you. And hopefully this was somewhat helpful to you. As always, I thank you for watching. Check out some of my other motorcycle videos. Got plenty of car videos. And also dabble in model car kit building. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.